my man's Bill Haston, Tulsa World Sports columnist. Been reading him since I was a kid. Bill, you felt old yet? Just a little bit?
No, no, there's value in longevity, and there is.
Okay.
My database is massive.
Oh, don't I know it? But I also...
That's kind of a braggy thing to say, but it is. It's true.
No, but...
Anybody that does this a long time has a substantial database.
Hey, man.
If you don't, you haven't done it right.
Well, and it depends on what... there you go. You said it. If you don't, you haven't done it right. Mm-hmm. And you've done it right. And I'm going to ask you about something that I hope is in your... Well, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to posit. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to posit a take, and you're going to tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong. All right? And we can have a conversation about it. Spencer Sanders or Dru Brown, to my knowledge, are going... One of those guys is going to be starting quarterback at Oklahoma State. And I think Mike Gundy kind of backed himself into a corner last year, and we can take that apart. But you redshirted a grad transfer, which is unprecedented. Mm-hmm. Nobody does that because we haven't had the grad transfer rule for that long. It's been about 10 years, give or take. And Dru Brown was the goods at Hawaii, no matter what anybody wants to say. And he came here to play. He did not come here to sit behind Taylor Cornelius, and he certainly didn't come here to sit behind Taylor Cornelius for an entire season.
Right.
And now you got Spencer Sanders, who is ready. He's there. He came out of Texas as Mr. Texas Football, which, by the way, is not a feat that Baker Mayfield accomplished or Jalen Hurts accomplished.
Kyler did, though.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
There the man is.
Yeah.
And you lost Keontae Woodley to the transfer portal in Northern Arizona. This is a guy that was highly touted coming out of Parkway in Louisiana. So you had quarterbacks, and you went with the West Texas kid that I'm sure you like, and you put it out there, you like him, he stuck with your program, and you wanted to reward that. But now, it feels as if you need to play Dru Brown, or you're never going to get another grad transfer again.
Right. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay.
I don't know if it would dissuade other grad transfers at the position. I just don't. First of all, I think anybody would look at Dru Brown's situation and say, you could have gone to any of about 60 other schools and started. Why did you go to a place that had a fifth-year senior, albeit a walk-on originally?
No, that's why.
Cornelius.
That's why.
Okay, but the guy's 6'6", 238, and was in the program for 4 years before you even considered going to Oklahoma State. So there was at least the potential that this guy had the inside track. And after midway through spring, it was apparent that Cornelius was going to be the guy. It was no doubt about it. And but then you mentioned, you go through 13 games without Dru Brown getting any run at all, right? I'm with you. Everybody was surprised by that. But ultimately, what I've learned is that Gundy was so appreciative of Cornelius's patience, and that he really developed into a better player than they ever dreamed he would be. Gundy just felt an obligation to play the guy.
Look, I throw it to Cale Gundy on this when he came up for OU Texas last year to do the presser, the Monday morning presser, which is a big deal. It's OU Texas week. Lincoln Riley was under the weather, and he was asked about his brother, head coach Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, and he said, "What do you think about what he's doing up there?" He says he can do whatever he wants, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders about it and kept it moving,
right? Which
is on the nose, right? Because who was going to tell Mike Gundy not to do what Mike Gundy wanted to do? It's his program.
Right.
I also think that this is interesting in the age of the portal and in the age of saying things like snowflakes. Like, you're not going to win anybody over. Thanks for ruining some 17-year-old's thoughts about what he could do here and how value he might be.
Right.
But with Cornelius, he's making the statement that if you stick with me, if you develop,
you're my guy.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And there's value in that. There's value in that.
Hey, RJ, rewind to 2009, okay? Because Zach Robinson, in the second half of that season, was chewed to pieces. He really was. He was as beat up as Jason White was at the end of 2003 and as Josh Heupel was in 2000.
2000, yeah.
Oh, Zach Robinson was beat up. And you remember, Whedon came off the bench in the second half against Colorado and was heroic. That's the night that the Whedon to Blackman connection clicked for the first time. And there were a lot of people who were hopeful while appreciating Zach Robinson's body of work, which he was a total offense leader, career guy at OSU. And he had a nice career, but he was hurt and he wasn't himself by that point. A lot of people hoped that Whedon would get the start in Bedlam and in the bowl. And Mike, with the same kind of loyalty he applied in the Cornelius situation last season, Mike stuck with Robinson. And then the offense just was miserable in Bedlam and in the Cotton Bowl against Ole Miss. And then Whedon takes it over the next year with Dana Holgorsen, and they had the two best years back-to-back in the history of the program. Offensively, absolutely. And then so...
But think about J.W. Walsh and Rudolph.
Yeah.
Who was the better quarterback?
In a complete sense, Mason was by far.
Right. But how long are you going to take to pull the trigger on this kind of stuff? And that's the thing. And that was what's so unprecedented about Cornelius is it felt like perhaps Dru Brown or even Sanders would have got some run had the 4-game redshirt rule not been put into effect and had the transfer portal not been put into effect in the same season. I think that actually changed his timeline. Whether or not he wants to admit it out loud, I think that was the reason as to why you never saw Dru Brown or Spencer Sanders.
Right. I listen, through about 8 games, everybody in the press box would speculate, is this the week? Is this, we finally going to see, and there were some opportunities in some games you would think.
Blowouts either way.
Yeah, right. And it just never happened.
Well, and that was I got to wonder what is going through Dru Brown's head, because I know what you can say and what you can't say in that position as to your position coach or to your head coach,
right.
Which is, nothing, 0. You got to sit down. You got to swallow this.
Right.
And you moved from Hawaii for this.
Mm-hmm.
You got to hear this from your parents. You got to hear this from your friends. You got to hear this from teammates who see you in practice, who might think that you have an arm, you can serve an opportunity. You won them over. And the same thing with Spencer Sanders coming out of Texas.
I think the dual threat aspect, RJ, of Spencer is going to result in him starting. He'll be the opening day starter. Spencer Sanders will start at Oregon State. He's the guy. What I think Mike's biggest concern is that he would sure like to have Dru Brown around as a backup. Well, no kidding, you would. But
so would Lincoln Riley like to have Austin Kendall?
But what I would like to see OSU do is somebody put their arm around Dru Brown and say, you know what, we really appreciate that you came here and that you gave us a year. But if you want to play, you need to go away. You need to go somewhere else.
Right. And that was the other part about this is it would be unprecedented for him to get the waiver. And that's where I'm going with this. You redshirted him as a graduate student.
Mm-hmm.
And that's weird. 1.
Yeah.
2, it's the whole transfer portal and transfer process. And Dru Brown was not a part of this because the redshirt rule was put into effect after he got to Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
And the transfer portal went into effect while he was on the roster.
Mid-season.
Right. Suited up. However, I find it wildly interesting that, say, DeAndre Francois is a walk-on at Florida Atlantic University. And I was looking at that spot and I was going, doggone, that would have been a good spot for Dru Brown to just kind of be the steady guy at quarterback. That would have been a good spot for him to just end up, be Lane Kiffin's guy, go do what you need to do in that conference.
Sure.
And a quarterback position that has been, laughable for them with DeAndre Johnson, with Chris Robinson. You brought in another guy to compete with those guys last August that didn't work out, and you need a quarterback for your system to run. And yet, coaches in the same breath will say the transfer portal sucks and my kids won't actually commit to staying with my program. Will do what Mike Gundy's doing to Dru Brown.
Right.
How are you going to take a side here?
I'm with you. I mean, I have, because of Gundy's policy on media, on first-year guys, which is maddening because it applies also to grad transfers. But you can't interview them until they have been in the program for 12 months. It don't matter. Whatever their arrival date is.
Gross.
For 12, it's hideous. But for 12 months, they're off limits to media. So even grad transfers who come in like Aaron Cochran, the left tackle from Cal. Manna from heaven. You get a left tackle from the Pac-12 that falls in your lap, and he starts and he plays well. We never got to talk to him because of that silly rule. So I would love to talk to Dru Brown, and I would ask him that. Was it your sense when you made this decision to come to Stillwater that you were going to slide right in to the top of the depth chart and be that guy? And furthermore, were you told?
No, that's the thing. What were you told?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I come down on the whole Austin Kendall situation where I said right away, early on, nah, Lincoln did bad here. Go get who you want, and I understand the business is the business, but trying to hold on to that guy for any length of time at all is just horrible.